An older guy by the name of Raymond, Mr. lived in the undulating hills of Northern California, close to an old forest reserve. Over the course of 40 years, Raymond had worked as a forest ranger. He was a gentle spirit who had devoted his entire life to the protection of wildlife and the education of young rangers in the art of environmental conservation. Even when he was retired, he never stopped working. On a daily basis, he would drive his worn-out green pickup truck and patrol the trails that were located in the outside areas. Every one of the trails, every clearing, and every animal that frequented the woods was familiar to him. The unfailing care that he showed, not only to people, but also to animals that others had given up on, was something that many liked about him. In recent years, he gave special attention to animals that were injured or elderly and had nowhere else to go. His little hut, which was located on the edge of the forest, turned into a peaceful haven for individuals who were in need, including injured animals and dogs who had been abandoned. In spite of the fact that he was becoming older, his spirit never wavered. In spite of the fact that temperatures reached over 104 degrees Fahrenheit on a particularly scorching morning, Raymond insisted on checking on a wild deer that had been captured in a storm the day before. He proceeded to drive further into the forest. As the sun was shining brightly through the windshield, the heat was pressing down on him, and sweat was dripping through his clothes. He parked his vehicle close to a bush and slowly opened the door while holding binoculars. At the very moment that he became aware of the deer snoozing in the shadows, a severe ache pierced his chest. On the ground next to his truck, he stumbled while gripping his heart and fell to the ground. We have two young rangers. While Kelly and Marcus were in the vicinity, they were gathering film from trail cameras when they heard a faint scream for assistance. They arrived at the scene in a hurry. When Kelly tested his pulse, it was faint and irregular. Marcus looked through his vest for any available medication, but he did not find any. Due to the hectic nature of that morning, Raymond most likely had forgotten about it. The main station was immediately contacted by Kelly via radio. Within a matter of minutes, an emergency vehicle sped across the trails set aside for reserves. The small ranger clinic that was located at the bottom of the hill was where Raymond was brought. However, as the paramedics worked tirelessly, his eyes gradually closed, and his breathing became increasingly shallow. It was his heart that gave in. He was gone despite everyone's best efforts. The employees went silent as they realized that he was more than just a co-worker. He was their most important asset. Everybody was taken aback by the news. In accordance with Raymond's last desires, he would be laid to rest not in a cemetery in the city, but rather in the forest that he really cherished. They intended to do a straightforward service on a grassy clearing not too far from his cabin. On the following morning, his body was put out on a wooden platform, and the gentle light of dawn illuminated the ground. It was a calm atmosphere. Individuals, including hikers, neighbors, and even rangers, arrived one by one to pay their respects. When Kelly reached out and touched Raymond's still fingers, his hand was shaking. He was standing next to him. Marcus lit a candle and uttered a prayer while he did so. The sound of a gentle bark reverberated from the edge of the woodland, and everyone turned their heads. While making its way through the crowd, a massive black dog was moving slowly. Despite the fact that his eyes were serene and his fur was dusty, there was something intentional about the way he walked. The only sound that the dog made was a low whine, and no one dared to move. He approached the platform, smelled the air, and then settled down gently by Raymond's side. At that moment, Kelly suddenly recognized the dog, and his heart skipped a beat. His eyes never left the face of the elderly guy. It turned out to be Duke, the stray that Raymond had discovered over 10 years earlier, sick and famished beside the riverbed. Raymond had taken him in, nursed him back to health, and then released him back into the wild. Up to this point, no one had seen Duke since then. The Duke leaned his head against the edge of the wooden platform, and no one dared to be bothered with him. Many people's eyes welled up with tears as they realized that this was more than just a dog. It was a farewell. Kelly approached carefully and whispered softly, but Duke did not move at all. Instead, he blinked slowly as if to say, "Let me stay." That is exactly what he did. The team brought Raymond's remains to a peaceful grove close to his favorite trail as the burial came to a close. They dug the hole beneath a tall oak tree, and Duke walked with them, walking beside them without making a sound. During the process of carefully lowering the body into the ground, Duke remained seated and watched as Kelly put a wooden marker at the head of the grave. Then, Duke let out a howl that was both lengthy and painful, and it reverberated through the treetops. It was not a call or a bark. Rather, it was a cry of regret and sorrow. While everyone remained still and listened at the point where they eventually started heading back, Duke remained. Long shadows were cast over the grove as the sun sank below the horizon behind the trees. The dog remained by the grave for several days after the burial, and he slept next to it, keeping a watchful eye on it each night. Food would be brought to him by hikers. On occasion, they would discover him sitting in silence, staring at the stone marker in silence. Some individuals reported hearing him howl gently during the night. While sitting calmly next to Duke, Kelly and Marcus frequently paid him a visit. They were aware that Raymond is likely to have smiled at the sight. In those hills, the tale of the elderly ranger and the dog that never forgot him grew as old as the hills themselves. And even if the forest has moved on with the passage of time, there are others who believe that Duke still returns to the place simply to lie next to the one guy who once granted him a second chance at life.